Thank you, Lorraine, for bringing the readings. I'm wondering if you've ever been lost. I mean really, really lost. Where you set out with some sense of importance or urgency or need and suddenly find yourself in a different place than where you thought you were going to be. And you're lost. And you don't really know. I mean, these days it's a bit harder when you've got Google Maps. Like I refer to Google Maps eventually. I'm still a male at heart. I still refuse to take advice on where I am. I will go to Google Maps eventually. But I'm wondering if you've ever been truly lost. And I'm wondering what approach or what people have been the most helpful to you when you have been lost. And maybe it's not about geographically lost. Maybe you've been spiritually lost. Maybe you've been just emotionally lost or directionless lost in life. And I'm wondering who have been or what's been the most helpful attitude to you. Maybe you've been with someone who, or maybe your own sense has been wishful thinking. Like, I find I encounter people often who are lost, who spend a fair chunk of time just wishing they were somewhere else, wishing the circumstances were different, wishing that things would change. The trouble with wishful thinking is that when you wake up from dreaming, you're still where you are. That's what I've found anyway. Another approach, or another person who might come across your way is the optimist. And the optimist is someone who will say things to you like, look, this isn't so bad, and only good things will happen to you from here. Only good things can happen from here. Just look on the bright side. And optimists are great for a 2-second pick-me-up. But optimists often don't help us to address where we really are, that we are lost. And the number of people who I've encountered who are really struggling in life, and where someone who will only look at the bright side, thinking they're doing a good thing, has not been helpful. Refusing to see the pain, refusing to see the circumstances around. Now, when I'm wrong, this third person that I'm about to talk about is the person I don't like to encounter. The chastiser. The person who will have a go at you for being lost. Why didn't you follow the map? Why didn't you listen to me when I told you where you meant to be? If only you had done A, B or C. If only you'd packed a map. If only you'd read the map. If only you'd turned left instead of right. And in fact, we're not going to go any further until you admit to me that you got this wrong. Have you ever been lost with someone like that? It's not a very pleasant experience, is it? Ever been lost with what I would call the map teacher? So someone comes across your way and thinks what you need when you are lost is a lesson in how to read maps. So rather than listening to you about where you might want to be, or rather than listening to you about your need or your sense of desperation at the moment, the map teacher turns up and shows you how to read a map. And it can be a very long lesson. Now, I'm not saying learning how to read a map isn't a useful thing. It is a very useful thing. But when you're lost, your brain isn't in a space usually to take a lesson. Certainly mine isn't. Or maybe you've just got the map reader. And I think map readers can be helpful. Here's where you are. Here's where you need to get to. Now, this is how you hold the map. This is where you need to go. I have found, though, that when I've been really, really lost, the person who has been the most helpful has been the companion. The person who's been able to say to me, yes, this is where you are. And I can see that you're in a bit of distress at the moment. And I can see that you're talking about this is where you want to get to. And I can understand that you don't know how to get there. So how about I come with you and I'll show you for this moment how to get there. We can sort out the rest of it later. But I'm going to walk with you and we'll do this together. There's a saying that I've had in life, you know, I'd rather be lost with you than found without you. And I think that's not a bad phrase for Christians to carry, because we've often treated it like the most important thing is that we all get found, and we get found a particular way. And of course we lose so many people on the way doing things that way. There are lots of people who are lost in our world. I don't know how you're encountering it, but I am finding myself in lots of conversations with people who are lost. COVID hasn't helped. Lots of people are a little off course. Life hasn't gone where they thought it might go. They're a little bit disorientated. I thought I was going to this place, but I'm finding myself here and I don't quite know what to do from here. A lot of people are searching for a way, for some meaning. People are looking for a destination. People are seeking a purpose. Is it just me that's having those conversations? I think not. I'd like to think not. But there are lots of people who are struggling in the current circumstances. And it leads me to this place today where I want to ask the question, what's our voice going to be in these times? How are we as Corrimal uniting? How do we want our voice to be heard? Because my suggestion is that most people, when they are lost these days, don't turn to the church. When a lot of people are lost or disorientated, trying to find who we call God isn't on the agenda as far as they're concerned. I rather suspect, that that's because the church's voice for so long has been the chastiser. When we have found you lost, our starting point is to tell you why you're lost and how bad you are for being lost and how far outside of the map you are by being lost. The church, I think, is known in the wider community with this voice that says, we know the right way, you're stupid for not listening to us. And if you think I'm just throwing hand grenades here, I've been part of being that voice in my history. I don't wear it proudly, but I've been part of being that voice. I've been a counsellor at rallies. I've led camps for young people. I've met a number of people in my life where my starting point when someone came a little lost was to be the chastiser. Was to let people know how wrong they were in the eyes of God. That's how I was taught to be a counsellor in those kind of circumstances. It was how I was taught to engage with people who came seeking. Thankfully, I think there's another way. Apart from being a wishful thinker or an optimist, I actually really think the way is the way of hope. In the midst of trouble, in the midst of being lost, in the midst of being disorientated, in the search for meaning, in the search for purpose, offering people a bit of hope is a different approach again. And if you followed our readings today, I actually rather suspect it's the Jesus way. It's not to come from a place of entitlement or judgmentalism or guilt. It's to come and to encounter people and to be a beacon of hope. That's what I would like to think our voice will be, or is. I think it is, really. In our mission statement, we talk about the idea, in one of our values, when we call ourselves a people of love, we name being hopeful as being important to who we are. A couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I went on a minister's retreat. And one of the things that happened amongst about 25 or 30 ministers, this conversation came up in a sort of an interactive worship kind of thing about the prayer of confession. Well, it didn't even come up about the prayer of confession, it just came up about people who kept coming back to church every week saying they didn't feel forgiven. That they were lost in this sense of guilt. That they were lost in this sense of being crippled by the sense that they didn't feel forgiven. Why don't people feel forgiven? Why don't people get it that they're free, that they're ready, they can go, that they can live in the Spirit, they can be? Why don't people get that? That they've been set free, they're forgiven, they're ready to go. Well, I'm a bit of a cheeky person at times, and one of the things I like to kind of play with is the way we do things in church. And I said this to the whole group. I said, you don't think it's got anything at all to do with the fact, perhaps, that every week we expect people to come along to church and to sit there and to be led in a prayer of confession that drags them back through all the rubbish that they've done this week. And when it focuses on wrongdoings, and I've got to sit here for 2 or 3 minutes while a prayer goes on and think about muster up all the things that I've done wrong. As if that's the Jesus way. As if when we come to Jesus broken, what he does, he sits us down and makes us go through all the crap. You don't think that might be why people can't feel forgiven? You don't think, let me just say it was a hand grenade. People kind of went, no, it's part of our liturgy, we have to do it, prayer of confession. I haven't led a prayer, a significant, like a set-apart prayer of confession since I've been here at Corrimal. That's been a year now. I really expected someone inside about 6 weeks would come and say to me, where's the prayer of confession gone? But you might not have noticed, I don't actually lead a set-apart prayer of confession because I don't want you turning up week by week trying to drag up all the wrongdoing and all the things that I've done wrong and why am I separated from God and how bad I am and how awful I am and how sinful I am. I don't want you to do that. I don't think Jesus wants us to do that. That's even more important to me. I don't ever see Jesus doing that with anybody apart from the people who thought they had it all together. I want us to be a people of hope. I want us to be a people who, just like Jesus, when people came along to him troubled, when people came along to him recognising the gulf themselves, and that's our prayer of confession. It's the prayer of confession, just like Peter's admission here. Confession comes in many forms, my friends. It's not just about sifting through all the rubbish in our lives. Peter confesses in our reading today that he's a sinful man. He gets it. You're Jesus. I'm Peter. And when I say I don't lead prayers of confession, I'm actually telling a bit of a fib. Because in lots of my prayers, as I lead a service of worship, you'll notice that where I take us is into this space that says, God, you are God. And God, we are human. And those two things are different. And we confess that. And we know you understand. And that's exactly what Jesus does here with Peter. He offers him hope in his own disorientated state, if you like, in his place where he suddenly realises that he is not the captain of the ship, if you like. that he can't be the captain of the ship of life, if you like. See, what happens in our reading this morning is that when Peter encounters Jesus, when he encounters the power of God, he falls to his knees and he confesses. He confesses the awesomeness of God against his own human state. Now, what does Jesus do with that? Does Jesus say, right, okay, great, you've confessed. Now what I need you to do is pray the sinner's prayer. Now what I need you to do is go away for 10 minutes and think about all the things that you've done wrong, all the things that make you sinful and bad and awful. I need you to go away. I need you to stop and go away and really sit down with your mess and your mire. Let me detour here for a second. I think there are times in life when we have to confront the crap. There are times in life when we are not just a little lost, but where we are hamstrung, or where we are causing damage to others, where we're actually sinning in a way that is about damage, as opposed to just missing the mark. And yes, there are times when we need to sit down with God and we need to take stock of that and find a different way. But I really believe the starting point in confession, I really believe the starting point in hope, the way that Jesus goes about it, is to recognise we're not God. And once we get to that point, that's what God requires. Because what we get from Jesus here is not a program, a 12-week program for Peter to go through to suddenly become a Christian, a follower of Jesus. What we get here is Jesus says to him, stand up. Get up. I've heard you. Fantastic. Now let's get going. We've got stuff to do. You see, hope offers purpose. Hope offers meaning. Hope looks us straight in the eyes and says, yes, I get it. You're just like me. This is when we're talking, when Jesus, well, in many ways, Jesus is talking too. Like, I see your humanity. And we're going to get on with this together. I'm going to be the companion on the way. And it's not that you will one day become good enough to do this. It's let's get going now. That's what hope does. Hope allows us to find our confession, to find our difference to God, and be okay anyway. That's what grace is. And hope allows us to move. Hope has a plan that we're working towards together. So friends, that's the voice I hope we will be during this really tough time for people. And I find it tough. If I'm being honest with you, I've come back from holidays, I was kind of ready to go, and we're not together. It's really hard. I find this hard. Now, look, in all honesty, that's really not a whole lot, because there's a lot of you who are struggling with a lot tougher things than that. I get that. But COVID's kind of sucking the life out of things as far as I'm concerned. I'm finding it hard, if I'm being honest. And I can only imagine for some of you who are participating online, for some of you who are in the room, that hope is a bit hard to find at the moment, that we feel a bit downtrodden, we feel a bit lost. Who are we going to be? When we finally get to come back, are we going to have to close down again? You know, kind of what's the point? What are we doing it? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? Why? The hopeful voice for me in the middle of all this is Jesus' voice. which says, I want you. We've got some fishing to do. Yeah, it's tough at the moment. I'm not ignoring that. I know it's tough. But I need you to be my people of hope. I need you to be people who carry a voice that knows. That knows for many people in our community, these are tough times. And rather than doubling down on their lostness, offer some hope. This might all be a totally different language for you. You may have grown up in the church with a language that said, I've got to seek a confession and a conversion out of people, and that's when we'll know that they've become a Christian. Friends, the hope in my own life and where the light came into my own life and the light that I'd like to think to be able to share with people as a companion and a person who journeys on the way through, is to not see people as problems that need to be fixed, as problems that God needs to sort out and I'm the one on the job to do that. I've learned to see each and every person coming out of Psalm 139 as fearfully and wonderfully made, held close, held dear. Each person human, different to God, just as I am, seeking something bigger than themselves, just as I am, that I can join into to find life, to find abundant life, to find on earth as it is in heaven, life. For me, that's the hopeful voice. That's the hopeful approach. Seeing God's plan, seeing what God's doing in the world, and finding people who are seeking the same thing and joining in. I hope that's made some sense. I don't know if it will or not. It's kind of a sermon that landed on me about week 3 in my holiday, and I wrote it down, and I don't know now if that works or not for you. It's hard to tell with 4 or 5 people in the room and through the camera, and now I'm just fumbling around. But what I do hope, my friends, is that we will be a people of hope. My hope is that in our community, in our world, our voice will be one that helps people find life. Not judgment, not separation, not a bar they have to get over, but to find the genuine hope that comes to us through Jesus. A hope for life. Amen.